Hi and welcome back to my channel. After doing last week's video, I realized that I wasn't quite done with talking about running terms. Maybe it's because I've been doing a lot of research and studying recently, or I just love talking about running and everything running related, so here we are. Again, these two videos have not been exhaustive in all the running terms out there. Just these three I thought would be kind of a good addition to the ones I've talked about last week. So if you missed that video, I'll have a link for that in the description below. If you don't want to miss out on any videos that I post, click the subscribe button and tap the bell icon as well. So let's talk about even more running terms that you should know. The first term I'm going to cover is LSD. And no, it's not a drug. It actually means long, slow distance. Long, slow distance is a form of continuous training performed at a constant pace at low to moderate intensity over an extended distance or duration. And when I say slow pace, that's really relative to kind of every runner. A slow pace for a professional runner is quite different than what my slow pace would be. It's really dependent on your fitness, if you're a beginner, or if you're a more experienced runner or athlete. These LSD runs are typically done on the weekend when you have a little more time to get in that sometimes very long run in. These long runs require repeated inhalation of oxygen, repetitive heart pumping, and uninterrupted blood flow from the lungs to the heart to the whole body. And then this helps with capillary development and improved blood flow. Increased capillary development basically means that more blood is supplied to the muscles. As well, it improves the ability to get rid of muscle and tissue waste so it doesn't impede proper functioning of your muscles. In the traditional marathon training plan, the long, slow distance run, or just the long run, is the cornerstone of your training and your plan in general. The long run is really where you develop both mental and physical endurance. Typically, the pace of your long run or your long slow distance run, some people say between 60 to 90 seconds slower than your goal race pace, or within the kind of heart rate of 75% of your maximum heart rate. Again, this differs for every runner depending on their fitness, experience, and just the paces that they can currently run. Another way you can figure out your pace is doing the talking test. And what that means is basically you just are running with another runner, or just you can talk out loud, and if you're not able to carry a normal conversation without huffing and puffing and having to, stop to catch your breath, then you might be going too fast. Right now, of course, we want to run solo, but you can pretend to talk to yourself, and if you can't hold a conversation with yourself, then again, probably going too fast of a pace. LSD running teaches your body to store more glycogen in the muscles to be used as energy. As I mentioned, doing these LSD or long runs really helps build your cardiovascular system and just your muscle endurance. It can take up to a decade to fully develop a cardio system. I also find long runs just really good at not just building your aerobic endurance, but also your mental endurance, if that makes sense. Nothing like doing a long run, especially in the peak of your training when your legs are already tired and you have to do a plus 30-kilometer run. It can get really tough really quickly. It's just perfect training for, especially like the last 10 kilometers of a marathon are the worst, as you're just, you're ready to be done and there's still 10 kilometers to go. But anyways, I just find that those are just the times you really have to dig deep in your long runs that will just train you to dig deep on race day. The long run or the long slow distance run is also the perfect opportunity to test out your fueling, especially your fueling plan for your race. For me, I've been experimenting in taking more gels and just seeing if I can just improve, again, how much my stomach can handle. And so by testing it and training it now, I'll be better prepared for race day when I really need that fuel in the form of gels and electrolytes, for example. As well, you can test out different foods or meals you eat because you don't want to try anything new on race day. And if something bad or does not agree with you on your long, slow distance or your long run, it's not the end of the world because it's just a long run. And yeah, you don't want bad things to happen, but I'd rather it happen in a long run than on race day. Another goal of the long run or the long slow distance run is to help get your body used to increasing mileage. Having a strong aerobic endurance base really helps you run faster. You just have that foundation to build upon, and you just, again, helps you go faster. As you slowly increase your long runs, typically they say not to increase more than 5 to 10% of your weekly kilometers every week, and that your long run shouldn't be over 25% of the total weekly kilometers that you're doing. When you increase the distance on your long, slow distance run or just your long runs, you help your body, or you make your body create more slow twitch muscle fibers. As slow twitch fibers is really the bread and butter of most marathon runners or just long distance runners, the more you have, the less likely you will fatigue and increase your ability to endure for longer. You don't want to run your long run too fast, because as it will take longer to recover if you do, these big, huge runs all the time. Though I have done long runs with workouts in them, as those are really, really good to do, but not every week. There's just something beautiful about the long run, or you're just there for over 2 hours or, a long time, and it gives you the time to think and just be outside. And I just really enjoy the long run, though it's tiring sometimes, but just there's nothing that can compare to the long run, in my opinion. In conclusion, the long run or the long slow distance run is really important, especially for endurance training and just to build and increase your endurance, and you just become a stronger runner from doing them. Base building, also known as endurance training or your introductory training, there's lots of names for it, but I'll just use base building. Basically, base training is the foundation of all effective training plans, as this will allow your body to create these slow adaptations to training, which will help hopefully get you across the finish line without being injured. You will improve your cardiovascular and your muscular endurance during your base building period. Especially when you're training for a distance over 10 kilometers, the base building period is the longest of your whole training plan. This is due to the slower development of the cardiothoracic system development. Wow, I really can't say words. Words are hard. In the base building time, you want to keep your heart rate around 70 to 75% of your maximum heart rate. Strength training is a really good idea to do in your base building period. I find it really important to do it, especially in the base building period of your training, because when you get into the competition phase or just really close to your race, you don't have the time, or you're just too tired, or you're not able to do those big heavy lifts because it just takes too much time to recover from, and you have these big workouts to do. So I find the beginning, especially the base time, is the perfect time to kind of build a foundation that you can kind of keep going and building on, but maybe not to the extreme later in your training. I usually do around 2 to 3 times a week, depending on my schedule, but I really want to make sure it's a priority, especially during the base building period, because it helps me become a more resilient runner. And that's one of my words this year, is resilience. So I just want to not get injured again, or just prevent, getting a major injury, and strength training is one of the ways to do that. How long should the base building period be? Well, it depends on your fitness and your level of experience. For example, beginner runners probably need around 4 to 6 months to really develop a strong aerobic base, fitness, so they can kind of build on from that. And more experienced runners probably only need around 6 to 8 weeks, again, depending on the runner and the fitness that you're coming in to your base building time. But that's just kind of general guidelines. The last term I'm going to talk about is tapering. It's one of the key components in your mesocycle or your training cycle. I know myself, when I started tapering for my first marathon, all I could think about was, oh my word, I'm losing fitness and I'm not going to be able to run the marathon because I just will be out of shape and just all these things. In reality, tapering actually helps you perform better on your race day. When you've been overloading your system, during the peak weeks, or just, gradually increasing your mileage, your body requires an all overload reduction, especially if you want to perform at your peak and not be too tired. However, tapering does not mean you sit on the couch and become a couch potato. You still do workouts and train, just at a reduced volume. Your training should help you maintain your fitness while your body simultaneously recovers because of the reduced load and mileage that you're putting on it. In this period of recovery, energy stores will be maximized and muscles will repair themselves and become rested. When you taper, it's also a really good opportunity to work on your mental training. You have more time during your taper because you're not out there doing super long runs and just all the runs that you would be typically doing, especially in your peak weeks. So this gives you the chance to spend some time working on your mental training. And I've talked about mental training a lot in other videos. And for athletes, I believe mental training is very, very important, as well as your physical training, of course. You can do all the physical training, and when you get to race day, you can crumble because you haven't put in the time to train your brain. Honestly, the brain has so much an effect on your body. Like, your body can do it, but if your brain's not on board, then you're probably gonna crumble or just not be able to push yourself, or you might just have to stop. We've all been there. Running and training can be really hard sometimes, and there's times that I just want to stop, and those are the times I really have to dig deep and just know why I'm doing this workout or just running in general, and I know that will apply to when I do a race. You could have the best build up to a race and be in the most shape you've ever been, but the race is still going to be hard. I think it's just knowing that it's going to be hard and preparing yourself for it is part of that mental training. And if you haven't prepared yourself for it, you're going to be shocked and you might not be able to perform as well as you physically could or capable of. Anyway, mental training, super important, and I can do a whole video on this, which I probably will, but it's so important, especially in the tapering part of your training cycle. In regards to strength training during tapering, I really focus more on mobility and stretching and just making sure I do proper warm-ups and cool downs after my runs and just kind of checking in with my body and making sure that there's no kind of spots maybe I need to get checked on, but really I don't do any crazy strength training that will require me to recover a lot from. That's more for your base and your kind of middle of your training, not the tapering part of your training. For what length your taper should be, it really depends on the distance that you're running or racing in. As well, if you're a beginner runner or an advanced runner, that will affect how much tapering you need to do. I'm gonna have here a few examples of some guidelines for tapering. So for example, your 5K for 7 days for a beginner or 3 for a more experienced runner. The 10K, 7 days again for a beginner runner and 4 to 5 for an experienced runner. For a half marathon, 10 to 14 days for a beginner runner. For a half marathon, 10 to 14 days for a beginner and 7 for a more experienced runner. And lastly, for the full marathon, for a beginner runner, 14 to 21 days, and for a more advanced, experienced runner, 10 to 14 days. I didn't include ultra marathons because that's just a whole nother world and I don't know much about it and I'm just more familiar with these distances, but these are also just guidelines and really, listen to your coach and your training plan, but you do need to give your body some time to kind of recover and then you'll be raring to go on race day. In regards to running workouts, usually you peak around 3 weeks before your goal race. And then after that, you really cannot gain much fitness from your training, though it's still important to do workouts and all that, but really 3 weeks before your race is the kind of the golden time. Golden time, I don't know. Okay, I hope these terms have been helpful and that you've learned something or just a nice refresher. And again, I probably will do more videos in the future about running terms, but I hope you enjoyed this and I will see you next time. So click that thumbs up button and happy running.